I want to thank my patron supporters who are helping me to make more videos more often. If you'd like to become a patron supporter, please go to patreon.com/TJR, the original. Thank you for watching this video. Hi, this is TJR. If you watch movie reviews on YouTube, you've probably heard that Wonder Woman 84 has some real problems. Its tone and plot are all over the place, it pulls plot contrivances out of a hat, and it's not worthy of its 2.5-hour running time. But in just about every video review of this film, there is one really glaring problem that everyone brings up, and that's the return of Steve Trevor. By the way, if you're watching this video, I assume you have seen the movie and don't need me to explain every single plot detail to you. Now, using a magic wishing rock to bring Steve Trevor back from the dead sounds like a pretty weak premise, but I think if you present it right, it can work. The real problem is how the magic rock, referred to as a Dreamstone, brings him back. Instead of the Dreamstone just manifesting Steve Trevor, he is instead brought back to life in the body of another man. This, in and of itself, is not a bad idea. Instead, it's the way the film and its characters care so little about what happens to this random anonymous guy. They use his apartment. They sleep together in his apartment, where I assume they had PG-13 sex. Also, they put him in harm's way. And they use him to steal a plane. For this guy's sake, I sure hope he wasn't caught on any security camera footage, because if he was, he's going to jail when he wakes up. Now, at the movie's end, we do see that he's okay, but at the very least, I hope he didn't lose his job while Steve and Diana were using his body to help fight the bad guys. Yeah, I know, everybody on the internet has been beating this drum to death, and it's not the movie's only problem, but it is central to a lot of why the movie doesn't work. So instead of just being one more guy yelling at the film, I thought I might make a suggestion or two on how to fix it. Before I continue though, be sure to click a like, click subscribe, and smash the bell notification icon so you know when I release new videos. Hey, I had to sneak that in somewhere, right? Now, getting back to the film and how to fix it. I want to stress that I'm not going to rewrite the entire movie in this video, so if you're expecting that, you might be a bit disappointed. Instead, I'm just going to rework the film's opening premise and hopefully give it stronger legs to stand on. Okay, let's get started. The obvious thing would be to just have the Dreamstone manifest Steve out of thin air. Problem solved, right? I guess, but having Steve Trevor manifested in another man's body is actually an excellent dramatic plot device, one that was unfortunately ignored by the film's creatives. So instead, let's try actually using the idea that Steve Trevor is brought back to life in another man's body. First, let's keep the opening of Diana recounting a childhood memory of how she competed in what I will refer to as the Amazonian Olympics. This was a really great opening scene, but it never really paid off in the way that I think that the filmmaker intended. I could be wrong, but I think that the original intention was that when Diana wished for Steve to come back, she took the short path. The problem is that she didn't. In the original film, she was not aware of its power, and her wish was nothing more than wishful thinking. So young Diana competes in the games, and just like in the original film, she cheats and takes a shortcut. And just like the original film, she is chastised for it. But unlike the original film, let's not cut to 1984. Instead, let's just dump the whole 1984 motif. Honestly, I don't know why the 80s setting was even there. The plot of the first Wonder Woman movie was deeply embedded into its World War I timeline. It was integral to the story that it was telling. You couldn't have told that story without it. Wonder Woman 84, however, uses its 80s setting in only the most superficial of ways. It really wasn't necessary for the story, except maybe to give us this scene.
Parachute pants?
Yeah,
Does everybody parachute now?
So instead, let's set it into an earlier timeline. Instead of calling it Wonder Woman 84, let's call it Wonder Woman 48. Let's set it in the late 1940s. Now you may be thinking, why not set the film during World War II? After all, Wonder Woman first appeared in 1942, not too long after the United States entered World War II, and a good majority of Wonder Woman's adventures published during that time involved both her and Steve Trevor taking part in the war effort. That is, of course, when the original comic wasn't exploring various bondage fetishes. No, I am not joking. This actually was a thing back then, and something I might talk about in a future video. But that's a video for another day. Getting serious again, however, it would make complete total sense to have the first movie set during World War II if this were the first movie, but it's not. It's the second film. They already set the film during a previous World War. Setting the second film in another World War would be just redundant. Not to mention, it makes it too easy to just start copying the first movie. And I think that if you set the film in an earlier time period, like the late 1940s, the premise of a wish-granting rock becomes a bit easier to swallow by modern audiences. So in our new version, Diana still works as an anthropologist. In fact, you could play up the angle that her doing this during the 1940s makes her out of the ordinary compared to the majority of women of the period. This would make sense for her character to do, and make her a pioneer in advancing how women are perceived in man's world. In fact, by setting it just a few years after World War II, you get this opportunity to show Diana pondering the irony of women being asked to step back into the traditional role of housewife just a few short years after the war required that they take on the kinds of jobs that previously had been filled by men. So just like the original film, we show her secretly helping people as Wonder Woman, only it's 1948, and keeping her Wonder Woman persona a secret in 1948, in a world prior to the creation of surveillance cameras and TV as a mass medium, when the largest media available was newspapers and radio, feels a lot more plausible than in 1984. Also, just like the original, we see her living a life of loneliness as Diana Prince. By the way, I want to pause here and state that the idea that Diana Prince is still pining for Steve Trevor after all these years got a lot of criticism online. I have to say I disagree. Sure, maybe you or I would have moved on, found someone new. But Diana Prince, Wonder Woman, is a very pure, virtuous, archetypal character. A fair comparison would be Steve Rogers' Captain America. I can believe that any of these characters could and would go decades without considering that they could ever love anyone else again. But I digress. So next, we introduce the Dreamstone, just like we did in Wonder Woman 84. Now again, in Wonder Woman 84, Diana Prince believes that the legend of the Dreamstone being able to grant wishes is just that, a legend, a myth, and nothing more. Side note, I should also add that Diana dismissing the Dreamstone's legend of granting wishes kinda doesn't work with her character, seeing as how her origins are steeped in myth and legend. So instead, let's say that when the Dreamstone is introduced, Diana knows precisely what it is. She knows it's real. She knows its backstory and its mythology. And Diana's backstory in ancient mythology and her work in the present day as an anthropologist would make her a credible source of information for the audience. Her character would give the audience the necessary backstory on the Dreamstone and get it out of the way early on in the film, rather than waiting halfway through the movie before we're told anything about it at all. She also knows about the monkey paw principle that it works on, and that whatever you wish for, it will extract a price. So first, she would have to go through a crisis of temptation. She knows she wants Steve back, and she knows she shouldn't use the Dreamstone, that it will extract a price, and maybe even a terrible one. But temptation gets the best of her, and she makes the wrong decision, and she takes the short path. Now at least, the opening scene that we talked about earlier has some kind of payoff, because Diana knew what the consequences of using the Dreamstone could mean. And of course, the price she pays is that Steve Trevor comes back, but in the body of another man. What a horrible trick the monkey paw has played on her. Her love is back, but she can't love him. Because unlike Wonder Woman 84, our characters and the movie are going to completely acknowledge the weight of this. This creates a tremendous irony and melodrama that can be milked to significant dramatic effect. Movies of the 1940s definitely could have a more melodramatic tone than films of today, and I think the late 1940s setting kind of gives a filmmaker better license for heightened melodrama. Diana realizes she has made a horrible mistake. Because of her wish, an innocent man has been taken advantage of, and a cruel joke has been played on not only her, but Steve Trevor as well. They both know they have to do the right thing and renounce the wish. And here is where I make another small but very important change. Just like when you make your wish, you have to be touching the Dreamstone to renounce it too. But wait, someone has stolen the Dreamstone. Who? Who and what they plan to do with the Dreamstone is what drives the action forward. Now, it could be a 1940s version of Max Lord. I mean, the 40s had their share of con artists too. And I want to add that Max Lord is not some character that they pulled out of a hat. He is part of the DC universe. And that character has been interesting in, say, the comic book run by J.M. DeMatteis, Kevin Maguire, and Keith Giffen. But I don't think this version of the character is really all that interesting. So instead of using Max Lord, how about making Cheetah the primary villain of the movie? Cheetah is Wonder Woman's arch foe. She dates back to the character's original comics run during the 1940s. By the way, another problem with Wonder Woman 84 is that the trailers implied that Cheetah would be the primary villain. But after watching the movie, she feels like an afterthought. One more bit of clutter in an already cluttered film. I think that by getting rid of the Max Lord character, you can better develop Cheetah. She is, after all, Wonder Woman's arch foe, and she deserves better than the sidekick villain role she got in Wonder Woman 84. So already, we have at least the beginning of a tighter, leaner movie, one that makes more sense. Admittedly, I don't have all the details yet. I don't have Cheetah's plans for the Dreamstone, or what her origin is for this new revised version, or if the character even needs an origin. But hopefully, I have begun to set the film on a better path. Let me know what you think and share any suggestions you might have for rounding out this plot. This is TJR. I want to thank you for watching. I also want to thank my patrons who are helping me to make more videos more often. If you'd like to consider becoming a patron, please go to patreon.com/TJR the original. I hope you all stay safe and healthy.